Hello, hello. It is Tuesday at noon, and I'm excited to be back for an IG Live. My new friend Cathy is going to be joining me today, and we're going to be talking about her program and her experience and how she can maybe help you. She's a wealth of information and knowledge about nutrition, amongst many other things for breast cancer survivors. Hey Dylan, hey Erica. I'm just waiting for Cathy to join me today. She's going to be sharing a bit about her personal experience with breast cancer and the practice she has developed. Here we go. Let's see. Fingers crossed, guys. Cathy, I can see that you are. There we go.
Hi, Kristen.
Great. Hello.
Am I okay in the? I never know where if I'm in the right. Looks like my head's chopped off.
Your head's chopped off, but you know what? We
Let
can
me
hear
see
you,
if
and
I
that is
can
the
move.
important
How's
part.
that? Better? There. Hi.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Excited to have you share a little bit about your personal story and then talk about what your professional work has changed into since your own experience.
So thanks for having me. We talked about this a long time ago, and I'm excited that it's finally happening. And so just really quickly, my backstory is I've been a dietitian for over 20 years. I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years. And at the time of my diagnosis in 2014, October 27th, the date we never forget, I was running my brick and mortar private practice in nutrition, a nutrition therapy practice, and my private personal training studio. And within that context of my business, which was called NutriFit, Nutrition and Fitness, which was very unique when I came up with the name 20 years ago. Not so unique now, but at the time it was. I was also doing corporate wellness work. So my entire focus of my work as a dietitian and personal trainer was prevention, risk reduction, keeping people, primarily women, I did work with men, but the bulk of my clients were women, keeping them out of hospitals, keeping them healthy. I've never worked as a clinical dietitian. This is a second career for me, so that wasn't a path I wanted to follow. I wanted to work, one-on-one helping people. Initially, I thought with weight challenges and sports nutrition and that sort of thing, and I very quickly found that women were coming to me with their weight struggles and challenges and understood very quickly it was not about the food. Sometimes they could recite nutrition labels and calories to me because that's not where that's not the bulk of our training. Our training is using nutrition science to help people heal and stay healthy. And so I just organically shifted into the direction of working with people who have eating disorders, disordered eating, unhealthy relationships with food. And so using nutrition and fitness for health and well-being to support that overall. So that was the work I was doing. Loved it. Running my business, happy as could be, helping lots of people. And then I got diagnosed with breast cancer, it's surprising and shocking to every single woman on the planet who goes through that. But I had just run the Chicago half marathon 7 weeks before, felt like $1 million, was in great condition, ate a healthy diet. And so I struggled with that, obviously. And when I was heading into radiation, I reached out to a colleague friend of mine who was a dietitian. And I said, you know what? I know enough to know what I don't know about my diet regarding cancer. It's not my area of expertise. Now it is, but at the time it was not. And I just wanted her to review what I was doing, give me some feedback. And when I sat down with her and she was able to do that and just kind of, talk through things with me, I felt such peace and relief. And I thought, every woman needs this. And so fast forward to now, that is some of the work that I do. I have a program called The Peaceful Plate, and I help women eat with peace, not panic, because I wasn't panicked because I know enough that I knew I was on the right track, but I was questioning a little bit, a few things. I thought, am I missing something that because when you're a dietitian, you understand how food works at the cellular level and how it helps with recovery and outcomes and all the things. And so I just thought, I just wanted another set of eyeballs on what I was doing. And so I've learned so many women are terrified to eat. They're anxious about the food that they're putting on their plate. They're second guessing. They're confused about the information they're getting. There's a lot of conflicting information around breast cancer nutrition, particularly hormonally driven breast cancer, which is the type I had in the area that I specialize in. And they need help. They need guidance. So they need the education on the evidence science-based side of things, but they also need coaching and support to help them implement those guidelines and navigate their life after a diagnosis with, traveling and celebrations and holidays and sick days when your food is not textbook perfect, like sometimes you hear it should be, which is not true, by the way. But so that's the work that I do in my program, and that's how I got here.
It's amazing. I think when you and I've been thinking about you since we spoke, and because I think everyone has some weird food issues, or most women that I know do, and they manifest in lots of different ways. And it's easy to understand how that can become something that's an additional layer of stress when it's coupled with an illness, and that how valuable it is what you're doing, because we all know this, all of us, everyone watching now and later, whether or not you've had breast cancer or not, there have been moments in your life where you're having an issue that you feel out of control, and food can be one that you can control in a positive way. Like food and movement are things that you have control over, what you eat and how you use your body. And it can be so empowering and so healthy and so helpful. But it is that, like, you used the word dysmorphia a couple times, or dysmorphic, or, there's just, it's so fraught with issues. So I think that there's something really incredible about what you're doing, because a lot of us know what we should be eating, but don't have the support or the systems in place to actually make that happen.
And the word I used was disordered, although dysmorphia would fit. Body dysmorphia is definitely an issue, and it's a thing. So that's not incorrect to use that word. But I'll tell you, you just brought up so many things that I would, the work I was doing at the time of my diagnosis, as I mentioned, who knew in a million years that all the advanced training, all of the additional experience in the trenches that I had working with women who have these food struggles, it could be as slight as just being challenged with food from hearing messages when you're a kid growing up about how women should eat or how girls should eat, to full-blown, full-on in treatment eating disorders. So I worked in that full spectrum. And who knew that that would translate to the work that I do now? I never in a million years would I have guessed. Because I, as you said, most women, and I worked with a fair amount of men in my practice, their issues with food tend to be they present a little bit differently. But women there's a theme. Food is either support and energy and fuel and nutrients, or life sustaining, or it is a weapon, it's a coping mechanism, it is a cudgel, it is a double-edged sword. And just the spectrum of struggles is so common. And I always say that if you struggle if you're in that space and then you're diagnosed with breast cancer, it's like pouring gasoline on that little fire, and it's an apocalyptic explosion, because now it's a way of coping. When breast cancer is trauma. And so when we're looking at trauma, depending on our worldview, the way we have navigated to get to the point where we are when we're diagnosed, if food is your coping mechanism before, you better believe you're going to use it now, whether it's for comfort, whether it's for, to just make everything disappear, whether it's to, zone out, buffer, whatever, reward. There's a lot of emotional eating that I see in the breast cancer space, because food can make you feel better when you're feeling totally not better and out of control. And then there's the whole thing around, well, I'm in treatment and I only can stomach Pizza Hut pizza, but I feel guilty about it. And I'm like, that is a whole conversation that, and to your point, it's an added layer of stress and fear and anxiety and confusion that we don't need, because breast cancer is anxiety and stress and fear and confusion on its own. So we don't need to fan the flames with the food piece. And there's not that level of support out there. I've looked, there are survivorship groups where they'll have a nutrition presentation. Sometimes there's a great rock star oncology dietitian. I have amazing oncology dietitian colleagues around the world who work in a cancer center, but maybe they get 20 minutes with you, or maybe they're new and they don't
Right.
really, maybe you're in your 50s and your life is just not where someone who as educated as they could be in their early 20s and just starting out in their career in dietetics, they're like, this is great, but what do I do with the handout? It's like, I saw that missing
Yeah.
out there. There's this huge gap, and it doesn't need to be that way.
No, I agree. I would love to touch on what
Yeah.
you said about the Pizza Hut pizza as an example. I think it's a conversation I've had with people a lot. And I think I shared with you that when my mom was essentially dying from metastatic breast cancer, and this was in the early 2000s, and my whole family had really changed the way that we ate and followed all the protocols. And I felt frustrating that we were all doing this and it didn't seem to be making a difference. Mind you, she was triple negative, so it's a different conversation. But I think on the days when my dad and brother were really good at not cheating, I was not very good at not cheating. But the guilt that comes with that when you're thinking, oh, I need to do this for this reason, or I need to do this to support this person. But there are days when you're at a birthday party, like you said, or you're traveling, or how do you fold in the not missing out, the still enjoying foods you love? Like, I would love for you to talk about that as it relates to not just like people who are in chemo who really can only tolerate certain foods, and what that means, and what does it mean as you like move through the rest of your life and you want to be doing your best, but also maybe having pizza or cake or whatever it
Yeah.
is periodically.
Sorry, I had a phone call come in when you were talking, but I think I got the whole gist of it. It's really, how do you navigate your life with food and all the food situations that come up when you're trying to eat a certain way that, to support someone who's also eating a certain way, or to support someone through an illness or a medical condition with nutrition. So I'll say a few things. One, I'm going to, with love and complete respect, call you out on the word cheating. This comes from only from my heart and a place of sending you a big hug and an embrace. We cheat on our taxes. We cheat on significant others. We cheat at Monopoly. We don't cheat with food. That is one of my pet peeves. I could just kind of have a come to Jesus moment with just that word. Not about you, but about, it's part of the diet culture and brainwashing we have had in our world forever. If we don't eat clean, do we eat dirty? No. Then we're cheating. We get a cheat day so we can eat beautifully, perfectly 5 days, 6 days a week, and one day we get a cheat day. It makes me crazy because it drives that whole idea of food is either bad or good, and we are either bad or good as a result, which is not true. So that's where I just want to make that point, that I really encourage women who work with me and out there in the world who have, access to me, watch your language when you're talking about food and your behavior with food, because it's so powerful. We don't even think we're doing it. And if you have kids and you're talking about, oh, we're going to be good today, we're going to have oatmeal for breakfast, or, oh, let's go get ice cream and be kind of bad. We as adults can process that hopefully in a healthy way. Kids are like, oh, ice cream's bad. And then they would end up in my office, right, when they were 12, struggling with, well, Dairy Queen makes me want to throw up. I mean, so that's again, a whole nother conversation, but I think it's important here, right?
There's a lot of, we have a lot of discussions here at Brilliantly about the word survivor and fighter, and all of the language around this experience I think is really problematic, and you're tuned into it about food in a way that I might not be, but I appreciate you educating me. I think that's a really important point, and especially around little people that we're raising, and not embedding those like generational misinformation and damaging language into them too.
They model what they see and what they hear. And I've just had so many years of experience of kids, young, beautiful, brilliant, powerful girls with their whole life ahead of them, sitting in my office struggling with, I go to a birthday party, can I eat the cake? Or I eat the cake in my closet, or I hide food. So again, it's just to be aware of, now that we're in this space with breast cancer, and food is integral to our recovery and our health. How do we speak about it? So to your question about Pizza Hut pizza or any pizza or trying to support someone in the way they eat, what I find is that because food is something women can control, and I try to encourage them to say, think of it as being in charge rather than controlling, because controlling, again, is that black or white, white knuckling our food. If you're in charge of your food, you make deliberate, intentional decisions about what you put in your body. And sometimes that's cake, and sometimes it's pizza, and the crappiest pizza you could buy. Maybe it's not like quality, gourmet pizza, because you're at an airport or you're at a party and that's all there is and you're starving. And if we had data that unequivocally said, if you eat cake, your cancer will get worse or it will come back, so don't eat the cake, then I would be sharing that. We don't have that data. We read things out there in the world, put out into the world, pardon me, about food and how it impacts our health after a cancer diagnosis. And because we're very vulnerable at that time, and we are desperate for information and desperate to do all we can to help ourselves either not have to go through this again, reduce the risk of it happening again, or making things worse, we'll follow anything that sounds reasonable because we're very vulnerable. It's almost like I used to say, if someone told someone newly diagnosed with breast cancer to suck car exhaust because it would cure their cancer, they'd be like, turn the car on. Where's the tailpipe? Because they're just that vulnerable. And that breaks my heart because we don't have that science. We don't have that data. And this is another point of view that I am pretty vocal about. But because someone has cancer, it doesn't make them a nutrition expert. And I see that I've seen this throughout my entire career, but I think in the cancer space, it's especially dangerous. And you can have a list of foods to eat. Great. But what happens if you don't like half the foods on the list, or something being served to you or available to you is not on the list, or you just don't want to eat that way one day? It's not that the list is the problem. It's what we make the list mean, that we either follow the list or we're doomed. And so people tend to go either very restrictive. I have women say, I eat a 100% vegan diet. I don't eat sugar. I don't drink alcohol. I'm following such and such and such and such. I'm not going to say particular names, but certain authors and other people in the media, social media. I'm following their protocol. And I think, bless your heart, that's really hard. And it's not, and if you feel good doing that and you can live your life, great, live your life easily that way. But if it is a challenge and a hardship for you, but you're doing it because you feel like it's the answer, and if you deviate, you're in trouble, you're doomed, and you'll trigger a recurrence, then that's a different conversation, and that's where it doesn't need to be that way. So I'm kind of passionate about that topic, as you can see.
You're such a wealth of information. And I think when you were talking, I was thinking, there are so many people, yourself included, who were so healthy and mindful about what they were eating and physical activity, who get diagnosed anyway. One of my dear friends was recently diagnosed, and she's one of the healthiest people I know, like the most careful about not only what she consumes, but her headspace. She is the embodiment of wellness. And it was shocking to hear that she got breast cancer. And I think it's a reminder to all of us that it can happen anyway, even when you're following whatever protocols you think are the best, and knowing how to feel well and feel good and feed yourself in a way that helps you heal is so important. And you're right. I think there's so much information out there, and it's not all good.
Well, you can't.
Running in front
of. Point about your friend, if I could just speak to that for a minute. I had people say to me, and I was really private about my cancer, which is kind of crazy because now I talk about it all the time. But in the moment, I just couldn't, and I didn't. But people who did know would say, "Oh my God, if Cathy got cancer, we're done, we're doomed." And I get that thinking. Yet here's the thing: mine was physiological. I have dense breast tissue. I'd had microcalcifications and a number of biopsies before my diagnosis. Never connecting those, I didn't know that those two things were putting me at higher risk. At estrogen dominance when I was still menstruating. And so that's kind of like a perfect storm of physiology that there's nothing I could have done. What my nutrition and fitness levels did for me was help me get through treatment from a place of strength. It fueled my body well. It helped me stay physically strong so I could recover from my surgery fairly quickly. You know, we know, the science tells us that nutrition and fitness improve outcomes for any type of surgery, any type of diagnosis. It could be, you know, a heart attack. The better conditioned you are, the better fueled you are, the better your recovery. We know that unequivocally. And so, and just going forward, you know, women lose sight of, I think they start to look myopically at what they're using nutrition for after they've been diagnosed. It's to support my breasts, my breast health. That's why I'm eating so much broccoli. And I remind them that it's not your boobs that the only thing that benefit from the broccoli. It's your whole body, you know, your cognition, your heart, right, your blood sugar. We need to eat healthy regardless of whether we've had cancer or not. Unfortunately, cancer is a wake-up call for a lot of women to start either paying closer attention because it was kind of an afterthought, or they put themselves so far down on the list that they're like, oh, I do need to take better care of myself, and now it's urgent. And so however they get there, I just like to remind them that eating well is not, you don't need a breast cancer diagnosis to take the best care of yourself. But unfortunately, sometimes that's what comes up for women. And so, you know, and we do know that, I mean, there's too much breast cancer. Cancer diagnoses are on the rise across all cancers. Breast cancer diagnosed in younger women is on the rise. Regardless of how healthy we are, how many babies we've had, all the things that are supposed to be protective, there's a bigger problem and something's broken. And so it's not just our nutrition and our half marathon running. You know, yes, it's helpful. Never a bad idea to take good care of yourself, but blaming ourselves because we ate cheese or drank too much vodka and is a problem, in my opinion, because we don't deserve that. And the other thing I would say is your friend, you're saying she's the healthiest person you know. And people had said that about me as well. When I was 20, I was not eating for breast health. I was partying my brains out, you know, and I used to smoke in my early 20s for a few years. It was a phase, you know, and cancer takes years to develop. And what we tend to do, again, is get myopic and think about, oh, I only eat organic. I'm like, do you ever eat at a restaurant? Do you ever go to a drive-thru? You're probably not getting organic there. And probably every morsel you put in your mouth is not organic. And it doesn't make a difference. We don't, you know, so if we go back to the science, it doesn't support that thinking. But we're humans. We try to make sense of crazy traumatic events, which cancer is. And so the food, it's like, oh, food, I can focus on that because that I understand. That must be the problem, or else I'll make it the problem, right?
So where for women to like find good information, or what's it like to work with you? You know, people who watch this, like, how can we empower them to take a positive step forward towards their health?
I missed the first part. Did you ask me, what was the first part you asked?
Like, where can people find good information? You know, to find controversial or bad
I would say, first of all, look at someone's credentials online. If they are a dietitian I'm going to stop right there. If they're a dietitian, we have extensive training in nutrition. If they're a dietitian who specializes in cancer, particularly breast cancer, there's specialized training. There's a certification for oncology nutrition specialists. They tend to work more clinically, like in the cancer centers, but look for someone's credentials. If they don't have a legitimate credential behind their name, there's someone who says, well, I had cancer, here are the 35 supplements I now take. I encourage you to do the same, run the other direction, because it's good for them, but that doesn't mean it's good for you. So look for credentials. I would even say not all oncologists, radiologists, nurse practitioners We love them for the care that they give us in their lane. Their lane is to get us well, get us going, get us back to our life. They're not trained in nutrition. And so they're well
Yeah.
intentioned in answering questions from their patients about nutrition, but most of them will, if they're honest about it, they will say, that's not my area of expertise, I'm not sure. So,
Yeah.
a great doctor will say, let me refer you to someone or connect you to someone who can help you with that. So look for the credentials, first of all. I have a number of colleagues on Instagram who are dietitians who specialize in cancer support. But I would also say, even within that, there is the science that is followed, and then there is personal opinion about nutrition. And even dietitians have personal opinions about nutrition. And I remind people, nutrition is not, it's a science, it's not an opinion. And so some dietitians lean more, a little bit more strict in their approach. I've done this for so long and worked with so many women. I know strict doesn't work. If you have diabetes or hypertension, even that, where food makes just almost an immediate impact on your outcomes, like if you're testing blood sugar, there are guidelines to follow, but you've still got to apply them to your real life. So it's taking guidelines and recommendations and making them fit for you. And so that's what I would look for online if you're looking for that
Yeah.
credible. There are certain cancer organizations who have nutrition information on their sites, but again, it's very general and very broad. And so go to my blog. I have a blog that has got a ton of information, and I post a lot of free content here on Instagram that is educational, inspirational. So if someone's just looking for something just to get their feet wet, that's where I would start.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And other than Instagram, you have a
Yeah,
website.
I have
That's where your
two
blog is, I
websites. I have my
assume.
website, which is cathyleman.com, CATHYLEMAN.com. We could maybe put it in the comments. And then my
Oh,
blog website, this is what I started doing after my diagnosis, when I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I need an outlet. I started blogging at Damn Mad About Breast Cancer. That is the name of my blog, because I was furious, and now I'm not so mad about in that way, but I'm mad that there's so much of it. So that's where my blog is housed, and people can find me obviously here. And if they're interested in talking with me about how to work with me in Peaceful Plate, have a DM, just reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to connect with. I'm reachable.
yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time, Cathy. It was really great to chat with you, and thank you for sharing your expertise. And I'm
Definitely,
excited to stay in
definitely. Thanks
touch.
for having me, Kristen. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time. Thanks everyone who's on the call. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.